Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. I'm Molly Gambhir. Taiwan finds itself at the center of a potential military standoff. The United States and China are on a collision course. Back-to-back visits to Taiwan by the US and its allies have left Beijing furious. Ever since the US House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, the one question that has dominated the discourse is, will there be a conflict? And over the next 30 minutes, we take you through the top developments with ground reports, expert voices, and analysts breaking down the future scenarios across the region. Xinxing Liu joining us from Taipei, the international editor of Taiwan Plus, Divya Gopalan from Taipei, Nicholas Smith, a correspondent for The Telegraph, also from Taipei, Tisanka Shripala, WION correspondent, joining us from Tokyo, and Bill Gallo, Voice of America's correspondent from Seoul. Let's start off with the latest. Amid heightened tensions with China after the visit of the US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, another high-level US delegation arrived in Taiwan in an effort to further boost cooperation between Washington and Taipei. The delegation is led by the Indiana governor, Eric Holcomb. This is the latest high-profile U.S. officials' visit to the island nation. The delegation met Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen as a part of the visit. During the meeting, President Tsai Ing-wen directly referred to Beijing's drills and called for all like-minded nations to support Taiwan. She further added that Taiwan and the U.S. are key security allies in the Indo-Pacific and that democratic allies must stand together.
Taiwan has been confronted by military threats from China in and around the Taiwan Strait. At this moment, democratic allies must stand together and boost cooperation across all areas.
Indiana governor, meanwhile, also vowed to provide support to boost the ties between the two sides. Listen in.
Because we share so many common values and interests and goals, there are more opportunities ahead of us than I think there ever have been before for us to continue to strengthen and cultivate and nurture this relationship as our economies grow and grow together.
The U.S. delegation arrived in Taiwan on Sunday, kicking off a string of foreign visits that defy China's increasing attempts to deter the West from engaging with Taiwan. The visit is part of an economic development trip that will also include a stopover in South Korea. Meanwhile, a bipartisan group of Japanese lawmakers, led by Keiji Furuwa of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, also reached Taipei. Japanese officials will be meeting the President Tsai Ing-wen to discuss China's growing aggression and the island's improving defense mechanisms with the U.S. All these developments coming as China continues to conduct military drills around Taiwan. China, which claims democratically governed Taiwan as its own territory, has been carrying out war games near Taiwan since the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made that two-day visit to Taiwan earlier this month. And on Sunday, Taiwan's defense ministry said it had detected 12 aircraft and 5 vessels from China's PLA near its territories. Beijing has not ruled out taking the island by military force. In fact, China has vowed zero tolerance for what it calls separatist activities in Taiwan and reaffirmed that it can go to any extent to take control of the region. And our correspondents in Taipei, Tokyo and Seoul, along with expert analysts from top global news organizations, will be taking us through the latest developments and what they mean for the geopolitical landscape. First, take a look at this report from Xinxing Liu, reporting for WION from Taipei.
Japanese lawmakers landed in Taipei on Monday and will be in Taiwan for a 3-day visit. They will meet with President Tsai of Taiwan on Tuesday. This Japanese delegation came at a time where the cross-strait relations is at a very high tension. But we need to know that this visiting Japanese delegation has been very Taiwan-friendly over the past few decades. The leader of this Japan ROC Diet Consultative Council has actually visited Taiwan 3 times in the past 4 years. And according to the Taiwanese Foreign Ministry, they will actually discuss key areas of cooperation between Japan and Taiwan. So one area of key cooperation that others will actually believe that will be discussed will no doubt cover security. We have been seeing the Japanese media reporting that the Japanese government is considering deploying more than 1,000 long-range missiles in the southern islands of Japan, the Nansei Islands, which these missiles will have capabilities of more than 100 km, and they would actually cover the coastal lines of North Korea and China. And this comes at a time when the Chinese have fired ballistic missiles over Taiwan at the start of this month in response to U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taipei. And these ballistic missiles, 5 of which actually landed in the Japanese exclusive economic zone. And that actually caused the Japanese government to be very, very worried, and they have condemned the Chinese government of affecting the current status quo and regional peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region.
Divya Gopalan, the international editor of Taiwan Plus, has shared her take on the frequent visit by democratic leaders to Taiwan and the ramifications of those visits. Let's take a look.
While it's not unusual for foreign delegations to visit Taiwan, what's unusual is the frequency and the attention they're getting. The governor of the U.S. state of Indiana is here at the moment trying to shore up ties between his state and Taipei. And in fact, another American delegation is due to visit at the end of this week. Also right now, a Japanese delegation of lawmakers are here on a 3-day visit. They're meeting with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen, the foreign minister, and defense officials. Now, that's significant because during China's large-scale military exercises earlier this month, missiles actually landed in waters that are considered to be Japan's exclusive economic zone. Those exercises took place in protest to the visit of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taipei. Now, she became the highest level U.S. official to set foot here in Taipei in 25 years when she came here earlier this month. And since then, China's increased its military presence around the region, particularly in the waters and airspace around Taiwan, where warships and fighter planes are spotted on a daily basis. China on Monday launched its own military drills again in the East China Sea. And all this takes place as the U.S. is conducting its military drills in South Korea, trying to boost its regional security partnerships.
Asia correspondent at The Telegraph, Nicholas Smith from Taipei, talks about America's intentions behind increased attention on the Taiwan Strait and China's reactions to those back-to-back visits.
I don't think America is deliberately sending in more delegations. I do believe that a lot of these delegations were already scheduled before Nancy Pelosi's visit. And we have seen a number of delegations over the past year or so, dating back much longer than that. But it's been quite normal for delegations to come to Taiwan, both from the United States and from other countries. We've seen several from the Baltic nations and Central European nations over the past year. So I don't think they are deliberately doing this to escalate the situation. But I do also believe that there is a message there, and that governments around the world are keen to bolster that message of support for Taiwan and not to back down despite China's aggressive moves towards Taiwan, and not to give in to this bullying of Taiwan. Democracies have every right to send delegations to a fellow democracy. And this is just a kind of normal part of international diplomacy, and that's what people want to stress. I think we have to make the distinction here between the One China principle and the One China policy. And China likes to make the international community believe that everyone has signed up to the One China principle, which is Beijing's view that Taiwan is a part of China And the US hasn't done that. The US has its own one China policy, which states that China is the PRC is the sole representative of China, but it does not accept. It does not recognize. It only acknowledges China's position on Taiwan. And so everything that the US is doing just now is completely in line with its own one China policy, and it hasn't changed. Generally, life is going on as normal. People are going around about their business as they always have done. Of course, people are, it's on people's minds. They're a little bit apprehensive, but there's certainly no sense of panic in Taiwan. People are really carrying on normally. I think the public consciousness changed after the invasion of Ukraine, that the public, for the first time in a long time, started to really think about what if the worst case scenario happens here. And that has been much more of a game changer for Taiwan than the Pelosi visit.
The visit by the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan irked Beijing, and now another U.S. official landed in Taipei. China has already resorted to military threats. What will happen next? What lies ahead? Voice of America's correspondent Bill Gallo getting us this report from Seoul. Take a look.
I think the military threats will probably continue, and I think that the U.S. delegations will also continue. It's pretty clear at this point that China is unable to deter these visits by not only the United States, but also senior lawmakers from many other countries. It's important to note that these delegations have happened for a long time. What's really new here is sort of China's outbursts expressed in the form of military exercises and things like that. This has gone on quite a bit. There is a chance, however, that China's response is even spurring more signs of public support for Taiwan. And that is something that the Taiwanese government at this point very much supports and would like to see. There's no doubt that China's response to these visits by the U.S. and others is endangering Taiwan's security in many ways. It's sort of wrecking the status quo, as one government official I spoke to said. It also, increases the possibility that there could be a miscalculation and some kind of hostilities, which I don't think anyone on any side wants to see right now. However, I get the sense that the Taiwan government is willing to take these risks in order to sort of use this moment to get more shows of international support, and to possibly even get commitments from some countries, although this is very tricky, to support Taiwan in the event of any eventual invasion by China. Of course, the U.S. has given mixed signals on this and sort of deliberately gives mixed signals on whether it would defend Taiwan. But Taiwan is really, in the form of its government and the majority of its people, really seeming to push very hard for international shows of support, despite any pushback by China right now.
And as China increases its military pressure on Taiwan, Japan is considering the deployment of 1,000 long-range cruise missiles to boost its counterattack capability against China. According to reports, the arms launched by ships or aircraft would be stationed mainly around the southern Nansei Islands and would be capable of reaching the coastal areas of North Korea and China. Also, at least 1,000 cruise missiles with a range of 100 kilometers can be deployed by Japan. This development comes after China conducted large-scale military drills near Taiwan after the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. Japan's defense minister had claimed that at least 5 Chinese ballistic missiles had landed in Japan's exclusive economic zone as Tokyo lodged a protest against China. He further raised concern about the drills and said the missile test presented a serious problem that affected their national security and the safety of the citizens. Several Chinese warplanes also entered Taiwan's air defense zone during China's military maneuvers around Taiwan. The heightened tensions further prompted Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida to vow to significantly boost defense spending. Meanwhile, a new report claims that the Chinese President Xi Jinping had asked his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden during last month's telephonic conversation to prevent the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi from visiting Taiwan. But the American president had bluntly ignored his Chinese counterpart, stating that the decision solely remained with Nancy Pelosi. And going across now to our correspondent in Tokyo, Thisanka Sirupala. She spoke about the ground situation in Japan and the potential contingency plans taken up by Tokyo in coordination with Seoul. Here's the report. Take a look.
Japan is facing a very precarious security situation. It is facing increased aggression from China. And what we're seeing is that Japan and South Korea seem to be edging closer together. They have got a very complicated wartime imperial past, and they seem to be coordinating training and coordinating military drills in an effort or a signal to China that they are forging stronger ties in light of these threats. So what we're seeing is that since US Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan earlier this month, Japan has been caught in the crossfire, and it has been facing, actually suspects that at least 5 ballistic missiles from China landed in its exclusive economic zone. And so this is the first time that China has launched such an aggressive attack. And so Japan is now accelerating its plans to boost its national defense, and it is preparing a new defense strategy and a new national security strategy. So currently, Japan's defense is capped at 1% of GDP, and it aims to double this to 2% of GDP. And this is quite a significant figure because Japan is the world's third largest economy. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is under increasing pressure to take a hardline stance towards China, and over the years, Japan has been showing more support of Taiwan's autonomy and democracy. So we're seeing 2 lawmakers potentially touching down in Taiwan sometime next week. That hasn't been confirmed, I don't think, but this is infuriating China, and it is very complicated because only last week Japan and China pledged to cooperate and improve communication, but we also see Japan refusing to back down on its support of Taiwan.
Meanwhile, the US delegation would also meet representatives from Taiwanese semiconductor companies and is expected to sign various trade and technology memoranda of understanding. Taiwan is home to the world's largest contact chip maker, the chips that run our laptops, smartphones and other smart devices. There has been no immediate response from China on the visit so far. Earlier this month, the US President Joe Biden had signed the CHIPS Act. This is a new law. It is designed to boost chip manufacturing in the United States, and American chip makers will be given subsidies. They are valued at over $50 billion. Joe Biden wants US companies to make chips, and right now they import most of it from China, and this story involves Taiwan as well. It is the global chip superpower. Taiwan dominates the global supply of chips. A Taiwanese company ships most of the world's chips. It is called TSMC, or the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation. TSMC is a bit like Saudi Arabia in the global oil business. It controls 53% of the world's chip-making factories. And with this new CHIPS Act, the US is trying to attract companies like the TSMC.
Folks, we need to make these chips here in America to bring down everyday costs and create jobs.
Xingxing Liu in Taipei reporting for WION on this. Take a look.
The PRC is very hesitant to attack Taiwan at this point in time. It's because Taiwan is technically the semiconductor hub. So, if the Chinese were to attack Taiwan, they would no doubt put a lot of pressure. It will actually affect the global supply chain, not only internationally, but also it may affect China itself. So, we are also talking about how the semiconductor is also seen as a item that will actually help to protect Taiwan's safety and interest. But if these manufacturing factories will eventually move to the US, what will actually continue to ensure Taiwan's safety in the near future? So no doubt we are seeing that the Taiwanese ministry reassuring the public that everything is be okay, because Taiwan will still continue to be the front runner and forerunner in this semiconductor development industry, and all the know-how will probably still be remade in Taiwan. But as to how this global supply chain will eventually turn out, and also at the same time how this competition between China and US in terms of global supply chain and especially semiconductors will eventually play out is still yet to be seen. This is Xing Liu reporting from Taipei, Taiwan.
And as China continues to surround Taiwan with provocative military exercises, the Taiwanese people are largely staying calm, but some residents are preparing for all scenarios, including a war. Voice of America's Bill Gallo reporting from Taipei. Take a look.
These Taipei residents are preparing for the unthinkable, learning how to apply bandages and pack wounds at this civil defense training. Most Taiwanese do not think war will break out anytime soon, but a growing number are preparing in case it does.
I learned how to stop the bleeding, and I learned how to help people and help me, myself, and help the others.
With the situation in Taiwan at the moment, I think that sense of being ready, just the awareness of being ready, I think it's important.
Taiwanese have dealt with China's threats for decades. Despite that familiarity, some say the current situation is more urgent than ever.
We democratized close to 30 years ago, and so right now, this is our best way to protect our hard-earned democracy while maintaining the peace. Right? That's our ultimate goal, to maintain peace while protecting our hard-earned way of life.
Enoch Wu founded Forward Alliance, the NGO running this first aid workshop.
In deterring conflict, it's just as important to have a citizenry that's prepared as it is to have a military that is capable and credible. And so what we're doing here is we're answering the question, what can each of us do more to help out our community and our country?
Others are taking a more military-focused approach. This course in Taipei prepares civilians for urban warfare.
No one wants a war, but if a war breaks out, you have to get up and fight in order to protect those you love or things and values you care about.
Many Taiwanese have military experience, though not much. Currently, Taiwanese men are required to do just 4 months of basic training. More civilian training is needed for Taiwan's national security, says former top military officer Li Shimin.
So many youngsters, they hate China, they want to protect themselves, but they don't want to stay in the military.
Li proposes a volunteer defense force to train Taiwanese to defend their own families and homes. It may catch on. A growing number of Taiwanese say they'd fight to defend their country. Others simply want to be prepared to help their neighbors in case a war that they don't want breaks out. Bill Gallo, WION News, Taipei, Taiwan.
And after interacting with the Taiwanese people and military analysts, Bill Gallo sharing his opinion on the palpable tensions felt in Taipei.
It is for sure true that Taiwan really has a sense of normalcy right now. People are in cafes, people are going about their normal lives. There is not any kind of sense of panic or anything like that. However, if you ask people, they are concerned, they are paying attention, they are following the news, and a small but growing number of them are actually taking first aid classes. There is an uptick, actually since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in some sort of private military training. This is something that's on the minds of the Taiwanese people, even if they are not necessarily showing it in terms of, leaving the country in great numbers or things like that. They're definitely paying attention to what's going on.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition. We're taking a break at this point. Stay tuned to WION World is One. Thanks very much for watching.